Hello and welcome. I'm Asima Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced the immediate start of negotiations to secure the release of hostages in Gaza and to end the war on terms acceptable to Israel, according to media reports. A Ukrainian missile and drone strike killed 2 people and injured 21 people in the Russia-occupied city of Kiev in Donetsk, according to Russia-installed Governor Denis Pushlin. The attack damaged residential buildings in Kiev and nearby Horlivka during rush hour. 8 Colombian police officers were killed and 8 injured in clashes with a FARC dissident faction that shot down police helicopter, marking a major escalation in violence. Hours later, a truck bomb killed 5 people and injured dozens in Cali, targeting a military aviation school. This comes as the country prepares for their next election. Kim Jong-un has honored North Korean troops who fought for Russia in Ukraine, decorating soldiers and paying tribute to the fallen in state ceremony, according to KCNA reports. South Korean lawmakers said about 600 of the 15,000 deployed North Korean troops have been killed in the war. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung and U.S. President Donald Trump will hold their first summit in Washington in upcoming Monday, with U.S. expected to press Seoul to pay more for the upkeep of American troops. The talks will also focus on engaging North Korea and strengthening South Korea's role in countering China. Thailand's former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra faces a verdict today in a royal insult case that could carry up to 15 years in prison under strict lese majesty laws. The ruling comes just a week before a separate court decision on his daughter, Paetongtarn Shinawatra's future as a prime minister, threatening to end the family's 20-year dominance in Thai politics. A U.S. federal judge has halted construction and barred new detainees at the Alligator Alcatraz Migrant Detention Center in the Florida, a project backed by President Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. Judge Kathleen Williams also ordered removal of some equipment after environmental groups challenged the facility's legality. A magnitude 7.5 earthquake has struck the Drake Passage between South America and Antarctica at a depth of 10 kilometers, according to the United States Geological Survey. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his government will begin immediate negotiations for the release of all hostages in Gaza. He insists any deal to end the nearly 2-year war must be on terms acceptable to Israel. His remarks come as the army presses ahead with plans to capture Gaza City and defeat Hamas, calling up 60,000 reservists. Let's listen into what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said.
אני הגעתי היום לאוגדת עזה כדי לאשר את התוכניות שצה"ל הציג בפניי ושר הביטחון להשתלטות על העיר עזה ולהכרעת החמאס. במקביל אני הנחיתי להתחיל במשא ומתן מיידי על שחרור כל חטופינו וסיום המלחמה בתנאים שמקובלים על ישראל.
Meanwhile, Israel has released 10 Gazans through the International Committee of Red Cross. They were detained during the ongoing war in the Palestinian territory. The release comes amid ongoing hostility and intense international scrutiny over Israel's detention practices. Let's listen into what the Israeli released Gazans detainees has said.
تم اعتقالنا من معسكر جباليا ودونا على أقذر سجن في العالم اسمه ستيمان. فشفنا تعذيب للأمانة لا يتصور العقل. مقبرة لا بتطلع عليهم شمس ولا بيعرفوا الليل. أنا 75 يوم عندهم غاد لا بنعرف ليل ولا نهار. أنا إلي هلقيت 75 يوم والله العظيم ما شبعت. والله العظيم جعان نوم ل100 سنة قدام. النوم ممنوع تنام. على الحديد بدك تضلك نايم على قفص حديد. إذا حكيت أي شكوى تقدمها لازم تتعاقب.
Meanwhile, thousands of Israelis protested in Tel Aviv supporting families of hostages held in Gaza. Demonstrators have waved flags and carried photos of hostages, calling on Prime Minister Netanyahu to reach a deal with Hamas and end the war. Let's listen in to some of the protesters had to say.
But I'm not optimistic, but I am realistic. I think that's the only way that we can get to a deal is by pressuring our government, the Israeli government, to make a deal. Because Hamas hasn't changed its situation about the deal. We know what they want, and I think we should do everything in our power to bring the hostages back home. Right.
Netanyahu must go for ending the war and going for a deal. Not a full deal as he's saying that Hamas will surrender and give up the hostages. It won't happen. A deal that will end the war, IDF withdraw from Gaza, and returning all the hostages. It's his duty.
Now for this discussion, we are joined by Shri Das Gupta. She's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you, Shruti, for joining us today. Good to see you. Shruti, what's going on in Israel right now? Do you think that President Netanyahu this time is seriously aiming to reach a deal with Hamas?
Greetings, Asuma. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
I don't think this is an actual attempt to reach a deal with Hamas, or this is just optics of Netanyahu's politics, because he is now facing great amount of internal pressure. The protesters have not left, even though he fired water cannons on them and has tried every possible way except for jailing his own people for protesting against an increased assault in Gaza. And the recently approved Gazan city assault plan ensures that the lives of the 20, as of now suspected alive hostages, will be put in further danger. So this is just optics of it, while he continues to start reservist soldiers to come back on roll, has asked for 60,000 more to come towards. There's new increased aggression towards the Gazan city. He is also just putting the words out of there that I'm looking for hostage release, immediate release, exchange of Palestinians and Gazans held by Israel in return for whatever the Hamas is holding. These are just optics of it. I do not know how many of those 20 would continue to stay alive by the time he finishes Gazan city assault. So these are just plain rhetoric, optics to make the world powers feel that Israel is looking for peace, because Hamas is not. Hamas is not looking for peace. It is watching Israel walk into its mousetrap, with the cheese being the hostages that they have kept around. And unfortunately for Netanyahu, he does not have any other recourse, and that's why he's playing to the fiddler, and he's allowing himself to say these words while he continues his aggression towards the Gazan city.
And Shruti, what do you think that what do Israel mean by acceptable to Israel in its terms that they are, or they say that they might agree on? What do you think it is?
Those words are out there by Netanyahu himself. He wants Hamas gone. He does not want any Palestinian organization taking care of Gazans. He wants Arab forces to take control of Gaza after they have ensured that the entire Gazan Strip is being cleaned out as per the satisfaction of Netanyahu and his regime. So these are at least two of the firm stances that we know of. They probably want a Saudi or an Egyptian control in the name of Arab forces controlling the strip of Gaza, and they'd want a complete demilitarized. That means that there's going to be no weapons allowed to be on sale or provided to the Gazan city and its people. So basically, it wants to defang Gazans as well as put them under severe scrutiny of their fellow Muslim Arabs of the Arab world.
Thank you very much, Shri Das Gupta, for always joining us and sharing your insight as an international affairs expert. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accuses Russia of avoiding a leaders' meeting, despite US-led efforts to arrange a summit to end this war. In his evening address, Zelensky has called Moscow's signals indecent and said Russia is trying to avoid the necessity to meet. He added that Russia does not want to end the conflict, underscoring the challenges facing international mediators seeking a diplomatic resolution. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Glenn Grant. He's an ex-advisor to Ukrainian Defense Minister, joins us live from Riga. Thank you, Glenn, for joining us today. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm actually in Kiev, not in Riga.
Oh, okay. I'll ask my team to correct your location then from
Okay.
team. Thank you. Do you agree with the statement of President Zelensky that Russia is trying to buy time? They're not genuine about making sure that President Putin is meeting President Zelensky?
Well, it's a bit of a daft way to actually phrase it. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that everybody has seemed to think that Russia has come towards Ukraine and America in terms of peace. They haven't. Putin hasn't changed anything, nor has Lavrov in their speeches. They've been absolutely clear that the war continues and what they want continues the same. The problem is that Trump is playing a look, aren't I wonderful game. And so people actually think that something is happening with the peace activities. It's not at all. I mean, night before last, which I spent in the bunker, by the way, all night, was the largest attack by Russia on Ukraine of the war, with missiles and drones all over. So there's no peace deal on the way. This is just business as normal. But Trump and Vitkov are trying to actually make themselves look good.
So you said I'm shocked that you had to spend a night in bunker. Is this still like ongoing? Like people staying in bunker in Kyiv? Is this like a daily thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I came back on the last tram 2 nights ago, and there were even though there was not an alarm, there were already people sleeping in the metro, and downstairs under the hotel where I live. I mean, there are bunk beds, there are beds there for people to sleep on, and it's constant. And yesterday during the day, I was actually in the bunker with about 100 school children. For a period in the morning. So it's because there were actually 2 attacks yesterday. So this is a constant. This is a constant. Russia is attacking all the time. And you know, you sit in your for those of us visiting for periods, you sit in your hotel room with your bag ready, with your sleeping bag and camp bed and everything ready all the time. People can get into the bunker in 2 or 3 minutes because the ballistic missiles land in Kiev about between 4 and 7 minutes, depending upon where they launch from. So you see children running to the bunkers every day.
Good. Thank you very much, Glenn, for letting us know about the reality in Kyiv right now. With people, please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia launched a massive overnight attack using 574 drones and 40 missiles. Ukrainian forces intercepted many, but some strikes hit civilian targets. One missile has destroyed an American-owned factory in Mukachevo, which President Zelensky called a deliberate strike on U.S. investment. Let's listen into what the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had to say.
Сьогодні весь день в частині наших областей тривали роботи після російської нічної атаки. Масована атака. Більше 500 дронів було, 574 були і ракети, зокрема балістика. 40 ракет. Значну частину всього цього наші воїни збили. І важливо, що є така у нас можливість. Є у нас такі відповідні засоби. Більше 30 ракет ми збили, десятки шахедів знищені нашими перехоплювачами. Дякую всім розробникам та операторам. Але, на жаль, були і влучання. Різні області, від Запоріжжя до Волинської області та Закарпаття. В Мукачеві росіяни фактично спалили підприємство, до речі, американське підприємство, виробника електротехніки, І це побутові електроприлади, нічого воєнного. Росіяни точно знали, куди б'ють. Це був ракетний удар. Ми вважаємо, це був цілеспрямований удар саме по американській власності тут, в Україні, по американських інвестиціях. Дуже показовий удар. Як і вся ця масована атака. Якраз коли світ очікує від росіян чіткої відповіді щодо перемовин про закінчення війни.
Meanwhile, Russian forces say they have captured the village of Oleksandro-Shultine in eastern Donetsk, Ukraine. The Russian Defense Ministry released videos showing troops using explosives among buildings. The ministry also claims troops struck Ukrainian energy, military, and airfield facilities overnight, although independent verification of these reports is not available. Meanwhile, several regions in Russia and occupied Ukraine are facing gasoline shortages amid Ukraine's attacks on Russian oil refineries and high summer demand. Targeting refineries include Novokuybishevsk, Syzran, Ryazan, and Volgograd. Authorities warn logistics issues, low stocks, and repair work are making the crisis worse. Residents report long queues and higher prices. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Glenn Grant. He's an ex-advisor to Ukrainian Defense Minister. Joins us live from Kyiv. Thank you, Glenn, for staying with us.
Thank you.
So the reported Russian strikes on a U.S.-owned factory in terms of escalating this international involvement, also U.S.'s involvement, do you think it will make any changes or difference in how U.S. is seeing Ukraine or seeing Russia?
Well, I'll say yes to the US bit first. But what is interesting is this is probably the first strike on Mukachevo, which is right up hard next to the Hungarian border. So I think that this is certainly going to have shaken the Hungarians, who've been very pro-Russian, as you know. And they suddenly realize that nowhere is safe from Russian missiles. And not Hungary. Hitting an American factory so soon after the supposed peace talks is a very clear warning, you might say, to America from Russia that they can't play with this game, and Russia is going to continue to do what it wants to do without interference from America at all. Whether it changes Trump's mind, I have no idea. I don't think anybody does. He's as liable to go against it as he is to go for it. So I think we'll have to wait a few more days to see when this sinks in. Because if Trump wants American investment, which he's talking about, into Ukraine, then he can't afford to have American factories trashed.
And like Glenn, you said that this can be interpreted as a strategic message to U.S. By Russia. So if so, do you think Washington is going to respond in any way, or we don't know what Trump is going to say?
I don't think Trump will. I mean, Trump's only response always is words. I mean, even in the last sort of like 2-3 months when he said we're supporting with equipment and weapons, they're not. Or in many cases, that they promised things to Ukraine, which have then been taken away and sent to Israel. And some of the weapons and systems are not things that Ukraine has actually asked for. So I just don't see that America is actually going to suddenly become rational and sensible in this case and actually support Ukraine in any other way other than just Trump's words going up and down all over the media.
And Glenn, do you think now we are seeing a shift in the war's dynamics towards more economic pressure and infrastructure warfare?
Well, that has been going on against Ukraine actually for the last 2 years. What you're seeing, and you mentioned about the fuel in Russia, is that Ukraine is actually getting its act together now and actually using its drones quite effectively, and has closed down, I think, four or five of the major oil refineries. So I think this queues for fuel is going to get worse, not better, because Ukraine realizes now that what it's been doing is working, and so it's going to focus on the energy facilities more and more. I think that is one thing that may actually bring Russia to the negotiating table.
Thank you, Glenn, for sharing that and sharing the reality of Ukraine right now, all the way from Kyiv. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Now we move on to South America. A violent attack on a Colombian police helicopter in Antioquia has left 12 officers dead and several others injured. President Gustavo Petro, addressing the nation, has confirmed the assault. Let's listen into what he has said.
Con los datos últimos recogidos, tenemos 8 agentes miembros de la Policía Nacional muertos y 8 heridos en una región de Amalfi, Antioquia, cuando su misión era erradicación de cultivos de hoja de coca.
In a separate incident, a vehicle bomb has exploded outside a military base in Cali early today, killing at least 5 people and injuring dozens. Authorities are attributing the blast to the Central General Staff, known as EMC, a dissident FARC group which has intensified attacks in the region ahead of next year's elections. In response, Cali's mayor has ordered the militarization of the city amid fears of more attacks. Let's listen into what he has said.
Ante la delicada situación que hoy vive nuestra ciudad, he ordenado la militarización de Cali. Adicionalmente, hemos reforzado la presencia de la policía en las entradas y las salidas de la ciudad y todos los organismos de seguridad del Estado están desplegados para proteger la vida de los caleños.
Now for this discussion, we are joined by Jim Rice. He's a professor of international law, joins us live from Beacon. Thank you, Professor Jim, for joining us today. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Oh, what more can you tell us about this situation that's ongoing, and also highlighting the fact that just last week they just lost a senator who was a hopeful candidate for the upcoming election, and now all this going on in just same week?
Well, again, I'm not an expert on South American affairs, but this insurgency or armed conflict between the government forces and the FARC has been going on for decades now. Having had its origins, I guess, in the late 1970s until now. And although the country has tried to come up with a reconciliation, obviously this recent incident is an indication that the conflict is going on. We'll just have to wait and see how this works out.
Thank you very much, Jim, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we move on to our next news. Chinese ambassador to India, Xu Feihong, has said that Beijing opposes the tariffs imposed by the United States on Indian goods. This comes as Washington has pressured New Delhi over its purchases of Russian oil and imposed tariffs of up to 50%. According to the Chinese ambassador, China intends to align with India in defending the multilateral trading system centered on the World Trade Organization, and is also open to bringing more Indian products into its domestic market. This follows Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's 2-day visit to New Delhi, after which India and China agreed to resume direct flights and boost trade and investment flows. Now for this discussion, we are joined by Jayjit Bhattacharya. He's an economist and finance expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. Can you tell us what is going to happen now between this if they open their economic corridor between China and India? Like, what will China import from India, and how will it maybe change the dynamics between India and China?
China is 2/3 the size of US. As the US tariffs have come in force on Indian goods, it implies we are losing out about $40-50 billion of our exports. That's a big hole to fill. So China could potentially be that market where we can divert some of these goods into the Chinese market. Unfortunately, there are a whole bunch of barriers that China has put in, which is why neither Indian goods nor other goods are able to penetrate into the Chinese market. So that's a different problem to be solved. However, the posturing from China is that the Chinese are open to having the Chinese market as an option to the US market. And it's also a larger geoeconomic signaling to the US that, look, the world is moving to an alternate WTO regime. The current WTO regime stands in tatters because of what the US administration has done. And, in fact, there is no appellate authority that is existing in WTO. So one can't really take any case to WTO and solve that problem. So in effect, it's a toothless entity that is, that is just carrying on. And it has its use, which is why the rest of the world is trying to hold on to it, including China. But what's turning out is that there seems to be an alternate regime coming up, alternate to WTO, which is WTO minus the United States. And therefore, it's a complex dance of various push and pulls that are going to get played out. And between India and China, let's not forget there is $100 billion that India faces as a trade deficit. That's a huge hole that we are facing from the Chinese side also. So India is in pressure from both the US and China. If China is signaling that they will open up their market, which they haven't done to any other entity, because they have been signaling that to many other entities, including the the EU, but they haven't really done any action on the ground. So it'll be very interesting to see how things play out in the future as we move forward.
And Judge it, how might this alignment challenge U.S. efforts to influence India's foreign policy, and particularly regarding to Russian oil?
I think it's the other way around. It's how India will be influencing US policies, because clearly the policy step taken by the US is not based on any real data. It's just statements being made that India is fueling the Russian war, which is clearly not true, because India is not the largest importer of oil from Russia. India is not the largest importer of gas from Russia. That is Europe, which imports the maximum amount of gas. India's trade with Russia hasn't gone up as significantly as the trade of other entities have gone up with Russia. So if there is a geoeconomic step being taken by the US without any basis, then it is for India to push back. And this is more of India creating its coalition to push back on a step taken by US, which doesn't have any basis. And that's captured in statements by senior politicians within the US, by congressmen, by Republican colleagues of the current president of the United States, and so on and so forth. So there is a large consensus even within the US that the US is taking steps which are neither geoeconomically good for US nor geopolitically good. In fact, there is a larger geopolitical damage happening to the US, and along with that, the rest of the world, because the US is still the most powerful country, both militarily and economically, and therefore any fracture happening to US impacts everybody else. So it's a situation of being distraught, and it's for India to really push back and bring some balance and semblance of equality in this equation.
Thank you very much, Yajit, for joining us today and sharing your insight in economics. Thank you very much. Now we move on to North America. President Donald Trump has visited a police command center in Washington, D.C. on Thursday, showing his support for law enforcement officers leading his aggressive crime crackdown. He reaffirmed his commitment to reducing crime. Let's listen in to what he has said.
We're not playing games. We're going to make it safe. And we're going to then go on to other places. But we're going to stay here for a while. We want to make this absolutely perfect. It's our capital. And this place was emblematic of it, with the crime, the horrible crime. And, you know, I watch these phony reports. Oh, we were on the way back. They weren't on the way back. It was worse than ever just a short while ago. But now it's going to be, I think now, right now, it's better than it has been in years. And in a couple of weeks, it's going to be even far better than that. And everybody's safe now. Everybody feels safe.
President Trump's visit comes after he announced plans to patrol D.C. streets with police and military personnel, following his controversial decision to deploy thousands of National Guard soldiers and federal agents to the city to address what he describes as a violent crime wave. President Trump's move to send federal troops to Washington has sparked local protests, with residents pushing back against what they see as an overreach of presidential power. Protests continued as Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth faced boos and shouts of fascist scum during their walk through Washington's Union Station. The pair were met with jeers from residents critical of the administration's handling of the crime crackdown. Now, for this discussion, we're joined by Professor Jim Rice. He's a professor of international law. Thank you, Professor, for staying with us. Now, could these controversial measures deepen the divide between federal and local authorities?
Yes, there's no question about it. And by the way, your intro was just excellent. You really covered all the points. And you even had the sound clip of Trump telling more lies. In fact, the crime rate in Washington had been going down as much as 38% in a number of indices. So once again, Trump is lying here. And this follows on the heels of Trump's bringing the military into the city of Los Angeles. Again, in both cities, this has been a pretext. It's been a pretext for Trump to exert direct military control over cities in the United States. And it's important for your viewers to understand this is contrary to the Posse Comitatus law of 1878, I believe that's correct, which forbids the federal government to bring troops into U.S. cities or U.S. jurisdiction. So this is, again, it's a disgrace. It's going to make America even more polarized than it has been in the past, and it's illegal.
Thank you, Professor Jim Rice, for staying with us and sharing your insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. This is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.